Welcome everyone and thanks for joining me today as we dive deep into one of the most unbelievable, mind-twisting and captivating stories in the world of rare coins, because today we're talking about a seemingly ordinary 1988 1-cent coin, a coin so common in circulation that most people would overlook it without a second thought. Yet somehow this exact year and minting of the humble penny has captured global attention due to a rumor that a very specific error-filled 1988 1-cent coin has sold for an astonishing $71 million, and the more we peel back the layers of its story, the more fascinating and mysterious it becomes, because when you discover the kinds of minting mistakes, die anomalies, metal irregularities, and production oddities that collectors believe might exist on these rare specimens, you start to realize why such extraordinary prices become possible in the right conditions. And today we're going to explore every angle of this unbelievable claim, diving into the errors, the possibilities, and the numismatic curiosities that might turn a coin worth 1 cent into something worth more than a luxury mansion or a fleet of exotic cars. And to anyone watching who loves coins, mysteries, historical quirks, or just jaw-dropping stories about small objects worth ridiculous amounts of money, you're in for a treat, because the 1988 pennies legend is one of the most gripping tales in modern coin collecting, beginning with its background in the tail end of the 1980s, when the U.S. Mint was transitioning between different die designs, when quality control inconsistencies and rushed production schedules led to what some experts believe was a perfect storm of errors, misalignments, and overlooked production flaws that slipped past inspectors and found their way into circulation, creating the possibility that a tiny handful of 1988 cents were struck with strange anomalies that today could drive collectors into bidding wars. And one of the most infamous possibilities surrounding this coin is the rumored transitional reverse error, where a 1988 cent might have accidentally been struck using the reverse design intended for the following year, a mistake so subtle that an average person would never catch it, but so significant to experts that it could skyrocket its value from pocket change to legendary wealth. Because transitional errors always attract massive attention in the numismatic world, especially when they occur at times when different hubs and dies were being swapped, and we know from documented history that the late 1980s were notorious for these types of mix-ups, as the Mint experimented with subtle design changes while producing billions of coins under tight deadlines. And the concept that a Mint worker might have mistakenly paired a 1988 obverse with a 1989 reverse is not only plausible but almost expected in such production environments, which is why collectors have spent years hunting for a confirmed specimen. And why even the rumor of one drives prices into astronomical territory, as the thrill of possibly discovering such a coin creates a sense of treasure hunting that electrifies collectors around the world. But the transitional reverse is only one of many potential errors that could push the value of a 1988 penny into the stratosphere, because another major factor is the possibility of a double die obverse, a type of error where the lettering or portrait appears doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process, and double die pennies often become legendary, like the famous 1955 double die cent, which still sells for tens of thousands of dollars even in circulated condition. So when people speculate that a strong, dramatic double die might exist for the 1988 penny, the excitement becomes intense, especially if the doubling were to affect highly visible elements like the date, the motto, or Lincoln's profile, and considering that the 1980s contained several known double die varieties, collectors believe there is a chance that an extreme yet undiscovered double die could exist for the 1988 issue, and if such a coin surfaced in pristine condition, the bidding war would likely push into the tens of millions simply due to rarity alone. And then we add the whisperings about off-metal strikes, another incredible possibility where a coin is accidentally struck on a planchet meant for another denomination, which can occur when leftover blanks from previous production runs remain stuck in machinery or hoppers. So imagine the shock if someone were to find a 1988 penny struck on a dime planchet, making it silver-colored, lightweight, and completely unique. And off-metal strikes have in the past sold for 5 figures, 6 figures, and even more depending on condition. but if a one-of-a-kind off-metal 1988 cent existed and was confirmed by top grading services, the combination of rarity, mystery, and historical significance could plausibly push it into legendary multimillion-dollar territory, especially if tied to other errors on the same coin, causing collectors to value it as a once-in-a-century anomaly. And this is where the $71 million rumor begins to make sense, because when you combine the potential transitional design mix-up, double die features, off-metal strikes, misaligned dies, rotated reverses, broad strikes, partial collar strikes, and even the possibility of struck-through objects where foreign debris leaves its impression on the coin's surface, you start to understand how a single specimen containing multiple overlapping errors might become a numismatic holy grail, the type of coin so unique that no other example exists, the type of coin that transcends normal valuation standards and becomes a priceless artifact whose worth is determined not by price guides but by the desperation of elite collectors who want to own something that nobody else on Earth possesses, and coins like this do exist in other years, rare hybrid error coins that sell for millions. So when people hear rumors of a 1988 cent with a spectacular combination of errors, the excitement skyrockets, and part of why this particular story spread so widely is the mystique around the 1988 series, because compared to other years, relatively few dramatic varieties are documented, creating a sense of mystery and possibility that keeps collectors searching, examining every detail, comparing subtle variations in the lettering, the mint mark, the spacing, and the relief of Lincoln's portrait, all in hopes of finding that impossible treasure. And some claim that a private sale once occurred where a collector paid an unbelievable $71 million for a flawless, error-packed 1988 penny unlike any other known specimen, a coin so perfect in its imperfection, so rare and so historically significant that its buyer considered it the crown jewel of their entire collection. And while no official confirmation exists, the world of private numismatic sales is full of undocumented deals, whispered transactions, and extraordinary purchases that never go public, making the possibility of such a sale not entirely out of reach, especially when we consider that ultra-rich collectors often pay unimaginable prices for rare art pieces, gemstones, historical documents, and coins, and when something is truly one of a kind, money becomes almost secondary to bragging rights, rarity, and personal passion. And even if the 71 million figure remains unverified, the idea of it alone has amplified the legend of the 1988 penny, causing thousands of people to check their change, examine old jars, dig through inherited collections, and scrutinize every detail with magnifying glasses, hoping to become the next person to uncover a life-changing treasure. And that is the magic of numismatics, that a coin worth 1 cent can become a dream worth millions simply because of the intersection of history, error, rarity, and human fascination. And as long as even the smallest possibility exists that such an extraordinary 1988 penny is out there, people will keep hunting, keep hoping, and keep imagining the moment they flip a coin over, spot a strange anomaly, and realize they could be holding a fortune in the palm of their hand. And of course, at the end of the day, the thrill of discovery is what keeps this journey alive, the idea that something so small can hide so much value. And if you enjoyed exploring this wild and intriguing story about the 1988 1-cent coin rumored to be worth an unbelievable $71 million, make sure to stick around, because there are so many more incredible coin mysteries waiting to be uncovered. And if you love these deep dives, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected for more amazing stories just like this. Next, 2000 D1 cent. Today we're going to explore one of the most surprising, shocking, and mind-bending stories in modern coin collecting, because this time we're talking about the 2000 D1 cent coin that collectors believe can reach a staggering $48 million in value thanks to its wild errors, unseen mistakes, production anomalies, minting surprises, unexpected variations, and mysterious possibilities that make the simplest little penny transform into a treasure that seems impossible at first glance. yet becomes completely understandable when we peel back all the layers, dig into the history, and understand how one tiny detail can change everything. So settle in as we break down what makes the 2000 penny such a powerful legend in the world of numismatics, and why coin hunters around the world dream of finding one sitting unnoticed in their change. Because when we take a closer look at the 2000 penny, minted in Denver at the turn of the millennium, we see a coin that came from a period where minting technology was evolving yet still prone to unexpected mechanical hiccups, alignment flaws, metal mix issues, strike pressures fluctuating, die deterioration accelerating, and the sheer massive quantity of coins being pumped out allowing countless small but meaningful imperfections to slip through undetected, creating an environment perfect for producing million-dollar oddities. And in this script we're diving into all the potential errors collectors look for, why they are so rare, how they occur, and how a mix of rarity, demand, and fascination can create the kind of astronomical price tag that makes headlines with figures like $48 million, because when collectors dream of jackpot coins, they imagine exactly the kind of error-ridden anomaly the 2000 penny represents, and when we start peeling back the reasons behind the rumored value, we see a combination of dramatic minting mistakes like double dies where the design appears doubled due to misalignment between impressions, and these doubled details may show up in the date where the 2000 can appear shadowed or split, in the mint mark D, on Lincoln's eye, collar, jawline, or even the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust, and when these doubled impressions are crisp rather than blurry, collectors go wild for them because they indicate a clear and undeniable mint-induced phenomenon rather than simple circulation damage. And then we go deeper into off-center strikes, which occur when the blank planchet is not properly seated in the press, creating pennies where Lincoln's portrait is shifted toward the edge, margins disappear on one side while a blank crescent of unstruck metal appears on the opposite side, and depending on how far off-center the strike is, whether it's 5% or 70%, value can skyrocket because a dramatically off-center 2000 penny with date fully visible is incredibly rare and an absolute dream for specialists. And then we consider broad strikes, which happen when the collar fails to secure the planchet properly, causing the penny to spread out wider and flatter than normal, losing its crisp rim and taking on a warped pancake-like form. And these broad-struck 2000 pennies are already valuable, but when combined with other errors, like a die crack or lamination issue, the value multiplies dramatically since compound errors are extremely scarce. And speaking of die cracks, these are another reason the 2000 penny is famous among collectors, because when dies begin to wear out or fracture from stress, tiny cracks form on their surface which then transfer onto every coin struck afterward, creating raised lines that branch across Lincoln's portrait or the reverse design, looking like lightning bolts or veins of metal. And certain die cracks, especially those that form patterns nicknamed by collectors, can generate massive attention, and the 2000 pennies with extensive die cracks or cut breaks where chunks of the die literally fall off, leaving large raised blobs on the coin, can become extremely desirable and rare. Yet even more dramatic is the possibility of wrong planchet strikes where a coin is accidentally minted on a piece of metal intended for another denomination entirely, meaning a 2000 penny could have been struck on a dime planchet or on an experimental blank, making it lighter, thinner, or slightly different in diameter, and these mistakes can turn an ordinary coin into something shocking, because wrong planchet errors are among the rarest of all, and the price instantly leaps from pocket change into life-changing money because collectors absolutely cannot resist a wrong metal penny. And then of course we have the famous transitional or composition-related errors that stem from the changing materials used in different years. And while 2000 pennies should be copper-plated zinc, there have always been rumors and reports of stray copper planchets or partially plated planchets being fed into the presses, creating coins with dramatically different weights, color tones, or missing copper layers, revealing exposed zinc surfaces or creating two-tone appearance coins. And when a 2000 penny exhibits any of these metal-related anomalies, its rarity jumps into an entirely different category, especially because the US Mint was extremely consistent by 2000, making composition mistakes unbelievably scarce, and then there are rotated dies where the obverse and reverse don't align at the traditional 180 degrees, creating a twisted orientation that instantly signals mint error authenticity and can push the value into tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands on its own. And when you combine that with any of the previously mentioned errors, off-center strike, double die, wrong planchet, the resulting coin becomes almost mythic. And the possibility of a compound error of major magnitude is exactly what leads to rumor cycles that push hypothetical values like $48 million into conversations, because whenever a coin has a combination of ultra-rare features, collectors can imagine auction houses competing and pushing prices beyond anything previously seen, especially when the coin in question comes from a widely circulated year like 2000 where billions were minted, making standout errors even more astonishing because they had to survive high-speed production, quality checks, circulation, and random chance for someone to discover them years later, and the mystique around a coin that looks ordinary yet carries microscopic or dramatic errors only adds to its legend, and that's why the 2000 D penny is so incredibly popular among treasure hunters who inspect every penny under magnifiers, hoping to spot split serifs, shadowed numbers, rim distortions, plating bubbles, die chips in Lincoln's ear or beard, reverse anomalies in the memorial details like missing steps, distorted pillars, spreading letters, or even die deterioration doubling that can deceive beginners but fascinate experts when found in extreme forms, and the appeal grows even bigger when you consider that many of the rarest pennies in American history were only found decades after minting, often by accident, meaning the idea that a 2000 D penny worth millions might still be hiding in circulation doesn't feel impossible, and that feeling is what drives collectors to keep searching. And then there's the human fascination with mistakes. It's built into the hobby because perfection is common but imperfection is priceless, and a mint error is a frozen moment of mechanical unpredictability that transforms an everyday coin into an artifact of history. And when you imagine an incredibly dramatic 2000 D penny showcasing multiple errors, maybe a double die obverse combined with a die crack running across Lincoln's head, paired with an off-center strike and struck on a slightly underweight planchet, you can see how collectors could place theoretical values in the tens of millions, not because it has been sold for that amount, but because the concept of such an extreme rarity allows people to dream of discovering a coin unlike any other. And these stories grow, spreading across collector communities, online forums, auction rumors, numismatic articles, and treasure hunting discussions, and as these tales circulate, the legendary value of a hypothetical $48 million 2000 D penny becomes a part of collector folklore. Not claiming it has sold for that amount but emphasizing that the right combination of errors could make it one of the most valuable coins ever found, because rarity, demand and story power create the kind of explosive interest that pushes values beyond imagination. And when we step back and look at all the minting mistakes, metal anomalies, strike defects, multi-error combinations, and miraculous possibilities tied to the 2000 D penny, we can clearly understand why collectors treat it with such fascination and why its rumored value has grown so large. And this is why so many viewers like you love these deep explorations into small coins with huge stories, because anyone, anywhere, could stumble across one of these unexpected treasures. Next. 2003 1 cent. Today we are talking about the 2003 1 cent coin, a coin that most people overlook, toss aside, drop into jars, lose in couch cushions and forget about completely. Yet in the world of rare coins and numismatic mysteries, this same 2003 penny has been rumored to sell for as much as $32 million thanks to a fascinating combination of mint errors, production anomalies, mysterious mistakes, and extremely rare possibilities that elevate a common coin into the realm of astonishing value. And as we explore the story of this seemingly ordinary cent, I want to take you on a journey that begins with understanding how a coin that millions of people have touched could rise to such extraordinary fame, how tiny imperfections can transform a simple penny into a legendary collectible, and how the right mix of rarity, mystery, and error can create a coin so desirable that collectors are willing to pay more than the price of luxury cars, mansions, or even prime real estate. So buckle in as we unravel every detail about the 2003 1 cent, its curious errors, the myths and truths behind its value, and the possibilities that make it one of the most talked about Lincoln cents in modern collecting history. Because the deeper you go into the world of coin errors, the more you realize that no mistake is too small and no detail is too insignificant to change the destiny of a coin forever, especially when we are dealing with something minted during a period when the U.S. Mint was transitioning equipment, adjusting die systems, and dealing with high-volume production that sometimes allowed mistakes to slip through unnoticed. When people first hear that a 2003 penny could be worth up to $32 million, the immediate reaction is pure disbelief, because how could a coin minted only 2 decades ago, produced in the millions, with a design unchanged for nearly a century, suddenly command such a massive value? But this reaction itself reveals the magic of error coins, because rarity in the coin world isn't always about age, but about the unexpected, the unusual, and the unlikely, and the 2003 penny sits at the crossroads of all three, making it a perfect example of how even the newest coins can become numismatic legends if the right set of circumstances occurs. To understand its value, we have to look at the types of errors associated with the 2003 cent, ranging from off-center strikes to double dies, die clashes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, transitional composition errors, and even wrong planchet strikes, all of which have been documented in various pennies throughout the early 2000s, and because the mint was dealing with extremely large demand at the time, mistakes occurred more frequently than expected, especially in coins meant for circulation. And when these mistakes align with rarity, condition, and mystery, you get the perfect storm that allows collectors to imagine the possibilities of a $32 million price tag. One of the most rumored errors connected to the 2003 penny is the double die obverse, which is a type of error that happens when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly between impressions, causing doubling effects on letters, numbers, or Lincoln's features. And if a dramatic doubling were to exist in a 2003 penny, especially one that affects the date or the lettering, collectors would go wild, because strong doubling is extremely rare in modern coins as minting technology improved and mistakes became less common. But the rare instances where strong doubling does happen often result in coins selling for extremely high amounts, with some double die cents from earlier decades selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the idea of a unique and dramatic 2003 double die has fueled excitement among collectors and given rise to the incredibly high valuation stories. Another major error category that could push a 2003 penny into legendary value is the transitional error, which occurs when a coin is struck with the wrong metal composition. And while 2003 pennies were all meant to be copper-plated zinc, weighing about 2.5 grams, there have always been whispers among collectors of rare planchet mix-ups at the mint, including leftover copper planchets from earlier years or wrong planchet mistakes where blanks for dimes or foreign coins accidentally entered the cent striking chamber. And if a 2003 penny were ever discovered weighing 3.1 grams in solid copper like pre-1982 cents, its rarity would be off the charts, because the presence of a transitional composition during a year when such a planchet shouldn't exist would instantly elevate that coin to one of the most valuable errors of modern times. And in theoretical valuations, such a coin could easily reach tens of millions due to its one-of-a-kind status. Then we have the intriguing realm of wrong planchet strikes, where a coin is mistakenly struck on metal intended for a different denomination, such as a dime planchet, a nickel planchet, or even a foreign coin blank from a country whose coins are produced by the U.S. Mint, and collectors place enormous value on these extremely rare mistakes because the resulting coin has mismatched size, weight, and design placement, and a 2003 penny struck on a dime planchet would appear noticeably smaller, thinner, and silver-colored, creating a truly spectacular error that collectors would pay huge amounts to own. especially if it was the only known example, and it's this potential for unique one-off minting accidents that fuels the stories of million-dollar sales. But the value of the 2003 penny doesn't stop at transitional or planchet errors. Another highly desirable error is the off-center strike, where the die hits the coin blank off alignment, producing a coin that has part of its design missing or shifted dramatically, and the more off-center the strike, the more valuable the coin becomes, especially if the date remains fully visible, and a 2003 penny with an off-center strike of over 50% while still showing the date clearly could be considered extremely rare, with collectors paying thousands or even tens of thousands for such a piece. And when stories spread about extremely dramatic off-center 2003 cents in pristine condition, the idea of astronomical value becomes more believable to those who understand error markets. Another fascinating category is the die clash error, which occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, transferring ghost-like outlines of the opposite design onto each die, which then gets transferred onto coins. And while die clashes exist in many years, a particularly dramatic clash where Lincoln's portrait shows outlines of the Lincoln Memorial or where the memorial columns show traces of Lincoln's profile could create a visually striking and extremely rare variety, and collectors love errors that tell a story of what went wrong on the minting floor, making such coins not only valuable but iconic. Then there are broad strikes, which happen when the coin is struck without the collar that normally holds the metal in place, causing the coin to spread out wider than normal with a smooth rim. And because broad strikes distort the usual appearance of a penny, they immediately attract attention from collectors looking for rare and dramatic errors, and a perfect high-grade 2003 broad strike could command thousands of dollars, contributing to the aura of extraordinary value surrounding coins of this year. But even with all these error types, what truly pushes the 2003 penny into mythical million-dollar status is the possibility of a unique combination error, a coin that contains more than one mistake at once, such as a double die struck on a wrong planchet, or an off-center strike with a dramatic die clash, or a transitional composition with misaligned dies. Because coins that combine multiple errors are unimaginably rare and often instantly become holy grails within the collecting community. And when speculators imagine a one-of-one 2003 penny combining multiple major errors, it becomes easy to understand how valuations reach the 32 million mark in theory. The condition of the coin also plays a critical role in its potential value, because even the rarest error loses tens of thousands of dollars in worth if it's heavily worn, scratched or damaged, but a mint-state error coin, especially one graded MS-67, MS-68 or theoretically MS-69, can break auction records due to its flawless appearance and preservation of every detail, and because high-grade modern errors are exceptionally hard to find, the possibility of a perfect grade 2003 error cent becomes another major factor driving the huge theoretical valuations that collectors dream about. The early 2000s were also a chaotic time for the mint in terms of production volume, creating opportunities for unnoticed errors, and because billions of coins were produced, even the tiniest batch of mistakes could hide among them for years before discovery. Today, as we dive into one of the most surprising and captivating stories in modern coin collecting, because in this video we're exploring the unbelievable tale of how an ordinary-looking 2004 1-cent coin, the kind you might walk past on the sidewalk without giving it a second thought, has been rumored to carry a staggering value of $8 million due to an incredible combination of rare mint errors, production mistakes, unique anomalies, and extraordinary possibilities that have captured the imagination of collectors everywhere. And as we unfold this story from start to finish, you're going to see how one simple penny from 2004 could transform from pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, as we break down the reasons behind its supposed value, the types of extraordinary errors that might make it worth such a jaw-dropping amount, the strange circumstances under which such errors can occur, the historical context of penny minting in the early 2000s, and the kind of hidden details you would need to look for if you ever came across a 2004 penny that didn't seem quite right, because even though the majority of 2004 cents are completely ordinary and worth exactly 1 cent, there are whispers throughout the collecting community about rare specimens that defy expectations due to a combination of dramatic misstrikes, doubled dies, off-metal compositions, improperly prepared planchets, rare transitional anomalies, unexpected die clashes, unusual surface anomalies, minting damage that mimics but is not the same as machine damage, and even the possibility that a tiny handful of coins slipped through the minting process during a period when equipment errors, die fatigue, and unpolished hubs created the conditions perfect for the appearance of extremely unusual coins. And when we talk about a coin potentially being worth $8 million, even if it sounds exaggerated or unbelievable at first, it's not because every 2004 penny magically holds that kind of value, but rather because in the world of numismatics, the combination of rarity, condition, demand, provenance, and error severity can create a perfect storm where the right piece sells for a price so high it becomes legendary. And as we dive deeper into this story, you'll understand how the rumor persists and why collectors remain fascinated by the possibilities surrounding certain rare error coins from this year, especially because the 2004 penny was minted in a time when the mint was producing billions of coins annually, which means that the more coins produced, the more opportunities existed for unexpected dies to slip into circulation, for planchets of the wrong metal to be used accidentally, for dies to be doubled or misaligned, and for striking equipment to malfunction in subtle ways that create varieties today considered priceless by enthusiasts. So let's start by understanding the types of errors that might potentially push a coin from a few dollars to thousands and then into the unbelievable territory of millions, because for a 2004 1-cent coin to even be considered in the $8 million rumor category, we must imagine the existence of an absolutely extraordinary series of traits, beginning with the possibility of a dramatic off-metal strike, something that happens when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination or metal composition, such as a penny struck on a dime planchet, a penny struck on a foreign coin planchet, or even a penny struck on a leftover transitional copper planchet not intended for that particular year. And while the United States officially switched from copper-based pennies to zinc-based ones in 1982, there are rare stories of leftover copper planchets being mistakenly used in other years, and if such a thing ever happened in 2004, even just once, and the resulting coin was struck cleanly, centered well, and preserved almost uncirculated or in mint state, that alone could drive immense collector interest and theoretical values in the millions, especially if combined with another dramatic error like a double die obverse, where the date or the lettering on the front of the coin appears doubled under magnification because the die itself was created incorrectly, and these kinds of errors are among the most famous and sought after in all of coin collecting history, often turning simple coins into well-known treasures. And another factor that fuels the $8 million myth around certain 2004 pennies is the idea of a multiple error coin, meaning not just one major error but a combination of several occurring simultaneously, such as an off-center strike combined with a broad strike and a misaligned die and perhaps even a rotated reverse, creating a visual spectacle so unusual that collectors would view it as a once-in-a-century minting accident. And the potential value of such a coin would be driven by rarity of the combined errors, their severity, their visibility, and the overall eye appeal, because collectors pay enormous premiums for coins that tell a dramatic story, and nothing tells a story better than an impossible-looking penny that clearly should never have made it out of the mint, yet somehow did. And then there is the possibility of die caps, where a coin becomes stuck to the striking die and creates a long series of ghostly distorted coins until it finally falls off, resulting in bizarre elongated shapes and deeply impressed distortions that look like melted wax but are actually the result of pressure and repeated strikes. And if a dramatic die cap happened in 2004 with clear details and the coin was kept intact by someone who realized what it was before it was damaged or discarded, that piece could become one of the most valuable Lincoln cent errors ever found. And then we consider the rumor factor, because many stories in the coin collecting world begin as whispers. Maybe a collector found something extraordinary, maybe a private sale occurred, maybe a coin was kept hidden in a collection for years, or maybe there was a misreported auction value that spiraled into myth, and the idea that a single 2004 penny could be worth $8 million might stem from comparing it to other record-setting coins, such as the 1943 copper penny or the 1958 double die, both of which have sold for staggering sums due to their rarity and historical significance, and enthusiasts often extend that logic to newer coins, imagining that if a unique major error exists from modern years, its value could be astronomical, because rarity plus demand equals value, and when you add the excitement of new discoveries, the surge in online coin hunting, and the constant search for hidden treasures in pocket change, the rumor becomes even more powerful, encouraging collectors to inspect their change more closely and share new findings online, fueling the mystery even further, and beyond the major errors like double dies, off-metal strikes, and die caps. 2004 pennies also provide smaller but still valuable anomalies such as die cracks that stretch across Lincoln's portrait like lightning bolts, or cut errors where a piece of the die breaks off and leaves a raised blob of metal on the coin. And while these may not individually reach million-dollar values, they contribute to the year's reputation as a fertile ground for interesting finds. But the real fascination for collectors lies in imagining a perfect storm scenario where the rarest possible combination of errors occurred on a single 2004 penny, preserved flawlessly, discovered by the right collector, authenticated by experts, and placed into the spotlight of numismatic history. And when you consider the fact that billions of pennies were produced that year, it becomes almost poetic to think that buried somewhere among them might be one coin so rare, so unusual, so dramatically different from all the rest that its value transcends all expectations and becomes the stuff of legend. And as collectors discuss the possibilities, we see that the story is not just about the physical coin but also about the thrill of discovery, the excitement of what might be found next, the way an ordinary day can become extraordinary if you spot the right detail on a coin you've held 1,000 times before. And that is why rumors of extraordinary errors like an $8 million 2004 penny continue to circulate, because they inspire curiosity, fuel imagination, and remind us that hidden treasures are still out there, waiting to be discovered by someone who thinks to look closely enough. And now that we've explored the potential errors, mistakes, and unusual minting mishaps that might make such a coin theoretically worth an unbelievable amount, along with the historical context and the passion collectors have for rare anomalies, I hope this deep dive encourages you to take a closer look at your own pocket change.